morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Friday, January the 27th. It is currently the last trading day of the month. What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. As for the overall markets, we ended up rejecting off key levels yesterday and having a pretty big reversal. So we end up rejecting off our previous day highs on both the ES and the NQ, drop right off the bat, and a lot of major indices plus a lot of tech names push towards the downside, primarily Nvidia leading the way lower. Ended up taking Nvidia towards the downside. A lot of semis are staying heavy here now as well. Of course, with the new AI concerns, which we'll kind of talk about here. Lots of other news in the after hours. We had a little bit of a sentiment shift with some earnings. We had Netflix pop in the after hours. So we'll talk about all this here in a second. Before we do that, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning, Will. TW, B Roots, Nontali, KO, Marcus, Martin, Lamit, Mark. Good morning. I am Big Deuce, Dave. What's up, everyone? Robert, Ashley, Cosmic. With the Discord, yeah, make sure if you're a part of WAP, make sure you connect your Discord to WAP in order to gain access. If you do need help, you can message in the WAP support chat. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Amani, Vade, Benny, Mark, Ken, Hippie, Julius, NT. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Sorry, one sec. Yeah, hope you guys are doing well. Let's pull up the economic calendar for today. We do have a little bit of red folder news at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So coming into market open here today, we do have a decent amount of red folder news. As you can see, we do have core PPI, which is going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is something to keep an eye out for coming into market open here, of course. So we'll go over some charts and what we have coming into today, and then we'll just wait for 8:30. All right, let's head on to the major indices, and then we'll head on to some tech names here as well. So let's head on to the higher time frame. So for the overall markets, recently broke outside this consolidation. What I personally wanted to see was actually this continuation towards the upside. So yesterday, I wanted to see the break above our previous day highs for continuation. Ultimately, we actually ended up rejecting off this level and continuing right back towards the downside. And now you can see nice rejection off our 69.30. And now we're right back in between the middle of the range. So we just broke outside the range, rejected. Now we're back inside of the range. And now the key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be our previous day lows along with our low that we created here, which is our 68.50. So we like to see this push towards the downside. Is my internet, or is it should be all set? Frames are good here as well. So if the stream is lagging, just make sure to refresh the stream. What channels alive? Yeah, the trading floor. Make sure to watch the start here video before you get started as well, just to get a good indication of how to use the Discord. But as for ES, the key levels coming into market open here today are going to be our 68.70. So this is the key levels, as you can see right here. We also have the level that we dropped from yesterday, which is going to be our last week's highs. So really coming to market open, we're just going to keep an eye on the reaction that we have off this 68.70. One scenario that we can be looking for, mean reversion. A lot of mean reversions have been happening. So if we bounce here, buyers step in, we can be looking for this gap fill back towards the upside, which is now going to be this 69.10. This is one scenario, and the only other scenario that we're going to be looking for today is some downside, which is going to be underneath our previous day lows. If we get underneath our previous day lows right off the bat, we can be looking for shorts underneath our 68.70. Another possible scenario is if we kind of just consolidate, get back underneath our previous day lows later into the session or reclaim back underneath, we can be looking for this push towards the downside here as well. So really few scenarios here. It's just going to be the bounce play off our previous day lows for a potential pushback towards the upside, or now it's going to be underneath our previous day lows, 68.70 for this continued push lower. Let's go into the SPY chart here. Key levels that we have on the SPY coming into today is going to be that 690. As I mentioned yesterday, broke outside of this range, really wanted to see this continuation higher, but ultimately rejected off key levels. And as you can see, right back down in towards the range. And now the key level that we're going to have marked out is going to, of course, be the 690, which is essentially the area that we broke out from. So for SPY coming into today, very similar thesis here. Key levels that we're going to have previous day lows along with our 689.50. If we want to see some upside today, we like to see buyers step in, offer 684 for this continued push back up and towards our previous day close. So this is really the only long scenario that you're going to be looking for coming into today off that 684. If you are looking for shorts, there's a few scenarios, right? If it pops higher, rejects, you can be looking for the break back underneath. You can look for a potential pop and fade here as well. Or now you're going to be looking for shorts underneath our previous day lows, right off the bat, looking for a push down in towards our 680. So really for today, right, we're just going to keep an eye out on the reaction that we have off for 684. We do have some more red folder news, as I mentioned, so we'll wait for the reaction at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think we also do have some other news as well. I'm going to have to check. But really coming to market open, pretty big rejections. If the markets do want to stay heavy, we can see a bigger push down in towards our low that we created here for the week. So I'm still open and playing both sides, right? But overall markets, as I mentioned, if we do break underneath our previous day lows, there's a good chance we can see now it's going to be the low that we created for this week, which happens to be our 681 on the higher time frame. So let's keep an eye out on this coming into market open here on SPY. As for the QQQ, very similar thesis here on the Qs. As I mentioned yesterday, the key levels that we had marked out was, of course, our 25,400. I was actually leaning a little bit more towards the upside yesterday. Ultimately, big rejections right off at market open, and then a reversal right back towards the downside. So coming into market open here today, similar levels, really the area that we broke out from. As you can see, we currently are rejecting this area. So now what we like to see is a potential push all the way back down in towards our low that we created here for this week, if we can get underneath our previous day lows. So for the levels that we have coming into today, key levels are going to be our previous day lows, along with our last week's highs that we've created. As you can see, a little bit of a touch here in the pre-market. So coming into today, if we do want to see any sort of bounce play, right, it's going to be the bounce here off our 24,900 for this potential continued push back up and towards our 25,100, right? We also do have a gap here as well. If we want to see some shorts, it's now going to be underneath, as I mentioned, our previous day lows. We can be looking for a short right off the bat for a continuation towards the downside. Another possible scenario, if it bounces, stays heavy, we can be looking for the reclaim short later into the session for this continued push towards the downside here as well. So this is what we have on the NQ coming into market open here. If we go on to the QQQ, similar thesis, key levels that we have marked out, 604, also have marked out your 609. If we want to see a bounce play, right, we like to see buyers step in here, offer 604. We can trade back up in towards 609, which is back up in towards our previous day close in this gap. If we do want to see some downside underneath previous day lows, continuation lower, or now the pop and fade, reclaim back underneath 604 for a push down in towards that 600. Either way, right, we can trade this both towards the upside or the downside, just because there's going to be a lot of volatility just based off of its previous day's price action, right after, of course, NVIDIA earnings as well. So I'm open and playing both sides. The best part is to not come into the market with an overly bias, right? You can have a bias to one way, but if the market isn't behaving or if the market has, let's say, a big bounce right off the bat, then don't look for a short until we get underneath our previous day lows. Very kind of similar to yesterday. I had a little bit more of a bias coming to market open towards the upside, but ultimately, right, rejections in the pre-market drop within the first 5 minutes. So I wasn't interested in upside because we weren't above our 617. And I flipped short fairly quickly right off the bat because we're underneath our key levels. The tape was staying heavy. So there's no reason to be bullish based off of yesterday's price action. Kind of similar today. Similar to today, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the downside underneath our previous day lows. But let's say, for example, we have huge buyers that step in within the first 5 to 10 minutes, then I'm not going to look to short, and I would much rather look for this mean reversion back up in towards our 609 here on the higher time frames. Okay, now let's go on to a few other indices here. SMH, this is the first sign of a little bit of weakness here. As you can see, overall higher time frames still very much bullish on the higher time frames. Hit all-time highs. We wanted to see the retest, but now ultimately pretty big candle right back down in towards our range here as well. So you can just kind of see this overall markets, even names that are breaking towards our all-time highs have pretty strong rejection. So that's something to keep in mind for the SMH, right? Hit our all-time highs, which was nice. Wanted to see the key level of support, which happened to be this low, right? Our low that we created here on Wednesday, broke underneath, or actually opened up underneath, and pretty strong reversal back towards the lows. So now coming into the today here for SMH, key levels that we have marked out is going to be that previous day lows. If we want to see some downside underneath our 406, we can see continuation lower. If we want to see a bounce play, we can be looking for this mean reversion back up in towards our previous day close here, which would be off our 406. So that's what we have coming into today here on the SMH. Now let's go on to the IWM. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. As for the IWM, really not too much to talk about for the past really few weeks here on IWM, just a lot more consolidation here. So as you can see, a lot of these names consolidating, specifically the IWM. Key levels of consolidation really are 256. Levels we want to break towards the upside, of course, is going to be our 268. So now let's head on to some tech names and what we have coming into today. We do have some red folder news at 8:30, so I'll go over some tickers here now, and then I will get ready for market open. Okay, let's go on to Tesla. So coming into today here for Tesla, let's actually first go on to the higher time frames. Let's go back onto the hourly chart. So for Tesla, as you can see, every single pop so far has been shorted, right? Overall, higher time frames, we are still in a downtrend. I'd say we're slowing down just a little bit, but key levels that we have marked out is still our 416. So as you can see right here, 416 is our key level. We have multiple touches. Rejections, was not able to break above this 416. And now you can see another little rejection here on Tesla. And now we're pushing right back towards the downside. So the key levels that we have coming into today here. Number one, at least on the higher time frames, 416. We can get rid of a few other levels here. What I'm going to have marked out today is, of course, going to be that previous day lows, along with the area that we broke down from, which happens to be our 410. So coming into market open here on Tesla, you can see we end up rallying nicely coming into this week towards the upside. A little bit of rejections here yesterday, along with the overall markets. Key levels today, previous day lows. For Tesla, if you do want to see some downside, there's a few things that we can be looking for today. Number one, of course, is going to be the break underneath previous day lows for continuation lower towards the downside underneath our 403. Another possible scenario here is going to be some sort of pop and fade off our previous day close. and we can be looking for this push down in towards our previous day lows here as well. Or now we'd be looking for some sort of rejection, opening range flip for a push down in towards that previous day lows here as well. So a couple scenarios that we can be looking for on Tesla. If we drop right off the bat and buy or step in, right, be cautious of this potential mean reversion back up in towards this 409. So this is what we have on Tesla coming into market open here. Now let's go on to NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is key, one of my main watches. Plus we had some earnings yesterday. So NVIDIA, I was actually leaning fairly neutral coming into yesterday, leaning a little bit more bullish on the higher time frames, of course. But ultimately, a lot of weakness right off the bat underneath our earnings lows, right within the first 5 minutes of market open. So end up flipping bearish underneath our earnings low, looking for this continuation back towards the downside. So as you can see here for NVIDIA, key level is just going to be that 194. Broke above, tried using this as a retest, ultimately failed. So now we're looking for the flip back underneath for a continuation lower. So for NVIDIA, key levels that we have marked out is our 193, of course, which is that earnings low. Now the other levels that I have marked out, of course, now is just going to be that previous day lows. So coming into today here on NVIDIA, you can actually see that we're underneath our previous day lows. Right, so underneath our previous day lows, showing some relative weakness here compared to the overall markets. NVIDIA is going to be one of my main watches coming into today. Keep an eye out on previous day lows, 185. What I'll be looking for is the rejection, right? So we could be looking for the pop and fade coming into market open here on NVIDIA. This is going to be the number one scenario that we have marked out. We'll be looking for the pop and fade. Another possible scenario, if it breaks above with a little bit of strength, rejects off kind of this pre-market high, this general area, we still can be looking for shorts as long as it maintains market structure, which is our 187. And then we could be looking for the reclaim back underneath here towards the downside. So this is what we have for NVIDIA coming into market open here today. Is there going to be IV crush? No, the IV was, right, once you do have earnings, the IV is going to be elevated, of course, before earnings. But as soon as earnings opens, or sorry, as soon as market opens yesterday, the IV is going to start to cool off because, right, it basically opens up fairly flat. So for something like today now, right, the IV is going to cool down, and that's why you can trade it after earnings. Only way you're going to trade upside here on NVIDIA would be the quick flip back above our previous day highs. I'm not that interested in this setup right here. This could be in play for a quick push up and towards our 188. I'll be a lot more cautious on this play, but NVIDIA very much well could reclaim, and you can see a nice trade up and towards this 188. Higher time frame, leaning more bearish, plus intraday bearish yesterday as well, and it's heavy in the pre-market. I'll be a little bit more cautious here on NVIDIA towards the upside. Much rather look for a pop and fade on this ticker. All right, let's go on to AMD. AMD key levels that we have marked out is our 204 here on the higher time frames. As you can see, AMD earlier into the week, nice pop towards the upside with some nice news, but pretty big rejections here off our 218. And now we're going to reverse back towards the downside just because we have this big gap. As you can see right here, AMD pretty big gap towards the upside. Now what we'd be looking for, sorry, is going to be this gap fill back down and towards our 197. So coming into market open here today, NVIDIA, as you can see, showing a little bit more weakness. We're going to be looking for that full gap fill back down and towards that 197. Key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be that previous day lows, 202. So coming into market open here on AMD, we can be looking for the pop and fade off our 202 for continuation towards the downside. Another possible scenario here now, if we break above our 202, we can be looking for the reclaim back underneath or the potential rejection here off our 204. Regardless, as I mentioned now, we'll be looking for that gap fill towards the downside here on AMD. Only way you're interested in longs would be a scalp, right? A mini scalp back up and towards 204, or now longs above our 204 for continuation higher, right? Higher time frame bearish, right? Sorry, not higher time frame, leaning more bearish towards the downside. Intraday bearish as well. So longs today are in play if there's a lot of buyers, but it might be a little bit more difficult here with the SPY and Qs. All right, let's go on to Apple. We do have about a couple more minutes until core PPI here, which is at 8:30. As for Apple, really not too much to talk about. Key levels is, of course, 275. A little bit of rejection off that level and a push right back down in towards our 270s. And now for Apple, key levels, just gonna mark out that previous day lows. Key level 270s, right? Potential bounce play here off 270 for continuation. Right above 275 for a pushback towards the upside. Apple, right, just been, I'd say, consolidating a little bit more the past few days. Google rejection here, offered 313 as well. Coming to market open, opened up underneath that 313 and pushed right back down in towards the low of the range. If you look at this on the higher time frames, let's actually just kind of refine this level. Right, what we have here is our earnings low. Key levels, we can actually just extend it down here. So for Google coming into today, moving forward, key level is going to be that 308. 308 is here, is key. If we want to see some upside, we'd like to see the reclaim back above. Downside is in play underneath 308 for continuation lower. If you look at this on the hourly, as you can see on the higher time frame, still technically bearish, now flipping back underneath this 308, right? Broke above, tried using this as a retest, ultimately still staying heavy here. Now, if you can maintain underneath this 308, potentially you can see a push down in towards that 300 here, based off the higher time frames. As for Microsoft, nice pop on Microsoft yesterday and the day before. Key levels that we have on the hourly time frame, right? Obviously, it's still technically in a downtrend, right? Lower highs are being built, and we're rejecting off key areas. But for Microsoft now, the key levels that we're going to have marked out is just going to be that 393. This is the area that we end up reclaiming, and we end up seeing that nice push up in towards that 404 that I talked about. If we want to maintain strength, bounce here off our 394, break underneath, we can see this flip back down in towards that 384. Meta, another one, higher time frames. Let me just kind of remove a bunch of key levels here. But for Meta, right, a bunch of levels marked out, higher time frames. Now where you're going to be looking for, right, every pop's still technically shorted here, right? Meta, you need to see it now above 660 for a continuation. The other levels I'm going to have marked out is going to be that previous day lows, which as you can see, we have multiple touches. If we break back underneath, then we can see a push down in towards our 640 and potentially below here on Meta. Amazon, another rejection here off our 211. So this ultimately never set up. Right, rejection off this 211, come back inside the middle of the range. And then for Netflix, key levels that we have marked out here is your 86 here on the higher time frame. So let's kind of talk about Netflix. We had some news. Nice bottom, showing a lot of relative strength the past few sessions, and now a nice pop here as well. So really solid move on Netflix, about 20% off the lows here. Really one of the only tickers that is showing strength compared to the overall markets here. So for Netflix, now of course we do have some news, but the key levels that we have, if you're on the daily chart, we're going to have to mark out levels all the way back from earlier of this year. So nice kind of pop on Netflix. Now we can mark out is your high that we created for this year, which is going to be 95, which is really a key level here on the higher time frames. Of course, it does seem like we end up gravitating towards that level in the after hours. So for Netflix, key levels coming into market open is going to be our 92.50. And then we also have our 86, right? Netflix above 92.50. If we reject, we can see something similar to AMD, potential mean reversion back towards the downside. All right, we just had core PPI. Let's go back onto this. Okay, so as you can see, we just had core PPI here. Came in actually a lot higher than expected. Forecasted 0.3, came in 0.8. Month over month, 0.5, forecasted 0.3 here as well. So it came in a lot higher than expected here on the major indices. And now you can see we're actually dropping. So dropping here, coming to market open. Right now we're going to be well underneath our previous day lows. So really the setup now coming to today is going to be that previous day low rejection here for continuation lower. If we do want to see upside still in play. As I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit more difficult today just based off the sentiment, just based off the higher time frames. I'd much rather look for a pop and fade coming into market open here, if we can even get that. Next key level is going to be all the way down towards 680. So for the SPY, similar thesis today, right? If we can get that pop and fade here off of previous day lows, we can be looking for that 680 push towards the downside. Qs currently breaking underneath. Let's look for that pop and fade off 604 for continuation lower. So yeah, most major indices underneath our previous day lows here now. So now we'll be looking for continuation down in towards this week's lows. All right, as for some of the names I'm keeping an eye out for today, right? Actually, a lot of names can be on watch just based off of the volatility that we've had in the markets. Tesla, underneath previous day lows, we can be looking for continuation. Nvidia, one of my favorite watches, down in towards our higher time frame key levels, which happens to be our 180. So for Nvidia, if we can get any sort of pop, the game plan today is a pop and fade. So if we can get a pop in the markets, we can be looking to fade it towards the downside just because we stayed heavy. No real significant pullbacks here. So a pop would be awesome for a fade back towards the downside on most tickers here. So let's keep an eye on pop and fade here on Nvidia. As for AMD, now the key level is just going to be that previous day lows, maintain underneath previous day lows, similar thing, push towards the downside here, down and towards our 198. As for a few other tickers, right, Tesla, AMD, and Nvidia are my favorites underneath our previous day lows. As for every other ticker here, let's kind of quickly go over these ones. These ones are actually ranging a little bit more, right? You have Amazon, Meta, Microsoft. These ones are holding up a bit more than AMD, Tesla, and Nvidia. So if we do look for a potential mean reversion, right, we can keep an eye out on these tickers. As for continuation lower towards the downside, we'll keep an eye out on AMD, Nvidia, and Tesla underneath previous day lows, along with the major indices. Okay, now let's go on to a few other tickers here. I'll go over some more charts and tickers for the next couple of minutes, and then I will get ready for market open here now. But as you can see, let's go on to a couple semis here, right? Immune really not doing too much. It's actually breaking underneath this trend line. Wanted to see the break above, but now we're just kind of consolidating here on the higher time frames. Some other movers, right? TSM kind of dropping off the highs. SNDK just still kind of consolidating here compared to the overall market. Some things that had earnings yesterday, CRWV, pushing towards the downside here underneath key levels, right? Kind of broke outside this mini consolidation that we've had. So breaking underneath 89, right? Potential big move underneath now 85 towards the downside. You can see currently a couple names, especially the overall indices and just kind of where it's at today. The market's just staying heavy, right? As long as you can maintain underneath previous day lows, you're going to maintain a bearish stance coming into market open, right? Previous day lows is key, right? If we break back above, be a little bit more neutral, but if we maintain underneath previous day lows, maintain a bearish stance. As for a few other tickers here, let's kind of quickly go over, right? A lot of the semis really not doing as much compared to the overall market. Palantir, yeah, not doing too much here. So now really the game plan today, as I mentioned, SPY and Qs underneath our previous day lows. Now we can be looking for our Mondays and Tuesdays lows. That's going to be the key objective today. Similar thing here with SPY. Underneath our previous day lows, we can see now our 680, which is going to be that Mondays and Tuesdays lows. So my main watches, Tesla, Nvidia, and AMD. We can also keep an eye out on the major indices themselves, SPY and the Qs. Really, there's a lot of opportunity on a bunch of different tickers here. So just focus in on mainly 2 to 3 top watches. So I just say focus in on the indices themselves, or focus in on Tesla, Nvidia, and AMD, of course. Today, I do expect the markets to be quite volatile just based off of yesterday's price action, right? With, of course, NVIDIA earnings that we had on Wednesday. Big drop yesterday. Day 2 now, plus we had some news in the pre-market as well. So we do expect continued volatility, where, as I mentioned, just keep an eye out on the reaction of key areas, which is now going to be that previous day lows. Besides that, as I mentioned, I am leaning a little bit more towards the downside, but of course, this market has had quite a bit of reversal, so be open and playing both sides. But hopefully, we'll now see that previous day low rejection. But yeah, that is going to be it for me today. It is the last trading day of the month, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Plus, it's a Friday, so yeah, stay safe out there, guys. And yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Besides that, I am going to have a YouTube video coming out on Sunday. That's going to be a good one based off of like entry models and the ones that I use. And yeah, besides that, hopefully you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that one, of course, is in the description below. And I'll see you guys all next week. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.